Hello and welcome there to another episode of the Cliff Notes podcast, where we found a leader and asked their way. Today I've been joined by my good friend Sara Duff, who's Sales and Marketing Director at Smart Manufacture and Smart Quality. So how smart are you feeling today, Sara, for a Friday?
I'm feeling pretty smart. It's been a long week, but a very productive week. Lots of interesting conversations with SMEs, so which I relish and really passionate about how you can help small businesses sort of improve their efficiency. So all in all, it's been a good week, but looking for a restful weekend.
That's the markets you like to keep on top of, sort of SMBs in sort of manufacturing.
Yeah, so we have two sides to our business, Smart Quality and Smart Manufacture. So Smart Manufacture, as the name implies, is very much working with manufacturing SMEs. So typically companies just beyond sort of startups, sort of 5 employees to 100 employees. With our Smart Quality business, we do a lot of work with manufacturing, but we also do a lot of work with construction companies, IT companies, courier companies. So it's all about helping companies implement ISO standards. Obviously, ISO standards aren't pertinent to any one sector, but clearly construction, engineering and manufacturing. So there's quite a good, neat tie-in between the two businesses.
Plenty of sort of logistics and hands-off between peoples and divisions.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And occasionally we do go into bigger companies. So we have a really interesting QHSE compliance management platform, which helps you more efficiently and effectively sort of manage all of your compliance sort of activities. So all of the activity that goes with ISO standards, but also how you manage your health and safety if you're in the food and food business, food safety, information security. And that platform, yes, goes in, we can support, several hundreds into the thousands of employees. So that's the one area of our business where we do get involved with larger companies, but principally the bulk of our business is with SMEs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And before we sort of dive in, how we can get some sort of helpful advice or sort of strategies going with that. I mean, what sort of built you up to this position? I mean, where's your sort of background or your passion come for this area?
Yeah, it's interesting because most of my career has been in the corporate world. So I've done a sort of range of marketing, business development and sales roles in very large corporate telcos and IT companies. So it's a lot of the companies that I've been dealing with a global sort of MNCs. I think really after sort of spending all of that time in the corporate world about 4 years ago, just under 4 years ago, in fact, I thought it's time for a change. I want to do something different. And I had the opportunity to work alongside who's now my fellow director into the SME world with the ISO standards business. And I have to say, everybody that knows me and has known me in the past has always said when I was in corporate land, gosh, you're such a passionate individual. Sometimes we feel that your passion isn't being reciprocated in the corporate world. And I think I got very frustrated sometimes that I was working with companies where the individual barely knew what was going on within, his division, let alone the wider company. Decision making was quite prolonged. A lot of people I was dealing with were just coasting to retirement, I should say, and didn't really have any real get up and go. And I missed that. And within the first sort of 2-3 weeks of working within the SME space, I really realized that SMEs are very different. There were people who were very, very passionate about their business, were very straight talking, pragmatic people who, didn't shy away from hard work to take their businesses forward. And that's been, something that's really motivated me as well. It's been nice to be amongst sort of fellow, passioneers, if I can coin that phrase.
Yeah, you covered it already. I was going to ask, is that where you find that that the businesses you're working for, they're passionate people, and that's what makes them successful and makes them also interesting to engage with and help them do more?
No, absolutely. And it's been quite refreshing. And I think what's kept me going in the last few months, because there's been so much doom and gloom on TV programs and the media, everything is, and of course, yes, there's been some real human tragedies with what's been happening. But for me, working within the, manufacturing SME space, I've seen so many positive people, resilient people who've, obviously got involved in pivoting their business, helping with the ventilator challenge, manufacturing PPE. But even those who've continued with their business have got stuck in, right, we want to sort of get through this, we will do. We've had some tough times in the past with manufacturing. So I'm part of a wider community across the UK that's, constantly, involved in terms of promoting what's happening within the manufacturing SME space and promoting positivity and all the great things that are going on. So I think being involved in this sector and those individuals has really kept me going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely felt. I mean, it's a slow thing to move, but definitely that there is this good community feel and conversations and sharing that's been happening at the moment. I mean, is that what you find, that the community's been able to help each other and offset some of this sort of learnings or hardships?
Yes, absolutely. There's a couple of initiatives that I've got part of that have sprung up as a result of the COVID piece and as a result of the need to build more local supply chains and really foster collaboration. So one is an organisation called UK MFG Unite, which sort of started off in the Midlands area, but now has about 460. Well, that was at the last count, members in terms of both manufacturing organisations, but also suppliers within the sector like ourselves, and that has been very refreshing. I've pointed quite a few of my customers who are looking at different supply chains, looking at they've lost a few customers, so they're looking at that business development activity.
Sponsorship of this podcast has been brought to you by Holding Bay, the digital web agency. Holding Bay specialises in working with B2B companies like manufacturers to build better solutions and drive better sales funnels. So if you would like to build a web application or improve your branding and sales funnel, get in contact today. holdingbay.co.uk or call us on 01273 044 019.
The other initiative, which is more local to me or started more local to me in the Southwest, is Connex, which is a sort of similar initiative. And, that's all about bringing designers and manufacturers together, sort of putting that community. So, those are two. I'm sure there are others out there. But yeah, I think the whole reshoring piece and getting people to collaborate. I think one of the struggles that manufacturing SMEs have had over the last few months is that as a whole, they've tended to pick up a lot of information and sort of networking through attending the really big UK manufacturing shows. So sort of shows like Subcon or Advanced Engineering or the Digital Manufacturing Week. And obviously all of those shows have been put on hold. And I think they've, certainly from the conversations I've had with manufacturers, they've missed that opportunity of getting that view on the external world. I mean, there has been a few sort of virtual events that have been held. And I think that's been a little bit of a challenge for a lot of manufacturing SMEs to get used to that technology. And a lot of them have said, it's been good, but it hasn't quite replaced the physical shows. So getting that information out and sharing, in the virtual world is key.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I appreciate those two groups that have been getting going. We spoke to Connex to maybe have them on a bit later in the year when they're scaling out of the Southwest and having more of a conversations going. And yeah, I mean, it was sad having Mac and different things move. Last year we went to Farnborough for Seven Mother Manufacturing earlier in the year with plans for many other events, and then everything just got wiped out. I think we were almost getting locked down while we were at Farnborough, but yeah. It's been a strange time without being able to see stuff and talk to people in person.
Yeah, no, it has. That was our last show, Southern Manufacturing. And then, yes, as you said, the world changed. And yeah, there have been a few attempts at the virtual world. There's a very interesting platform, though, just thinking about that virtually, that's just recently launched, which I can't remember the exact title, but it's something like Manufacturing 365. So that's been set up by an exhibition company that did a lot of work in manufacturing. And in fact, we attended the Premier Publishing Group. So we attended their event back in, that was just before Southern Manufacturing in Dublin, and they've done shows in Edinburgh and Milton Keynes, and they've built an online platform that literally is available 365, hence its name. And they've got a series of webinars as well that obviously promote that platform. So it's still in early days. I mean, I've got a bit of a watching brief on it, but it's an interesting initiative if it sort of really takes off.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, many people in the last years from their shops have been working out having their own showrooms and their own sort of mini days, mini open days and stuff to augment not having to rely just on the large shows. And you can only think that those are at least able to, when it is possible, stay open with a bit more distance, because you can control, okay, I'm only going to invite 10 people, only 30 people today, or we're going to put them through in groups, and it still lets you see tools working and keep busy. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see. I think we were both at. Were you at the Made in the Midlands event earlier in the last year?
I was indeed.
Then we were at the small manufacturing bit afterwards. Yeah, and I think those sort of ran quite well, even though they were a slightly different format than their normal live events.
Yeah, I think people had, with both of them, I think a few people sort of had a few challenges with getting used to the technology. So it was a bit of a learning curve. But I think after a while, people got used to them. I think the Made in the Midlands was very good because of the happy hour networking. And I think also the individuals that are involved from that organisation have quite a lot of personality and charisma, and there was an awful lot of promotion that went alongside those events, which I think was key really in getting people involved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a lot more of the events, or the ones we've been able to go along to, have been more around that sort of network and being aware of, and then maybe booking in demos or calls or something afterwards, as much as when you'd normally go to a show and be able to see stuff working, because it is much harder, and at least to get through in a day, seeing a cell working or seeing a machining centre working, that's sort of harder to convey online, when it's not just this sort of one-to-one situation, when it is something that's sort of got to keep running and it's more of a pace of a show. So yeah, we'll see how this evolves and where we go next. So I'm just moving away from shows or follow-up from shows, capturing people's information and sort of following up with them, taking orders and working with them. I think that's another area you focus on is sort of software to enable shops and businesses to work better and manage their information better with that. You've taken on a new relationship with working with Smart Manufacture.
Yeah, so basically with Smart Manufacture, our sort of whole mission is around, as I said, working with manufacturing SMEs, and it's all about helping them look at ways that they can work differently. So moving them away from managing their business through disparate spreadsheets and manual whiteboards, and looking at how we can help them streamline and automate their processes through a range of cloud-based software. So in the areas of sort of ERP, e-commerce and CRM software. But it's all about taking a stance in terms of looking at the manufacturing business, looking at the key challenges they're having across their entire manufacturing operation, and looking at if and how software, can help them. Because often what we find is that there's quite a bit of excitement about the software that we have, particularly our ERP software. But in a number of cases, that manufacturing company is not really in the right position to be able to reap the benefits of the technology. There's some fundamental work that needs to be done first in the way of sort of improving the processes or getting all of the employees bought in. So we firmly believe it's all about that alignment of the sort of the people, processes and the technology to get it right, and for people to get really the benefits out of the software.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's interesting. I mean, so is that something that precludes them from working with you, or is that where you get in and get involved and help them get certain processes up to standard and automated?
No, absolutely not. Our stance is very much to, whenever we have any conversation or any engagement, even if a company says, we've looked at, your ERP platform, which happens to be MRP Easy. We're very convinced it's the right platform for us. We've been on the website, we've started looking at some of the collateral. We always bring that conversation back to, tell me about your manufacturing business. What type of manufacturing do you do? Are you make to order? Are you make to stock? Are you make to forecast? What specific sectors are you involved in? What are your challenges? Is it around making sure that you can get more accurate quotes out to your customers and faster? Is it about your inventory management, how you prevent stock outs, how you make sure that you're optimizing your inventory? Is it about being able to do more automated scheduling, so that we ask a lot of in-depth questions. What about other systems? What accountancy software are you using? Are you looking at having a direct to consumer approach? So therefore, is e-commerce on your agenda? What about customer relationship management? So we have a very, I would call it holistic conversation about where the challenges are, where they want to sort of take the business to, what other systems and software are out there, so that we get that bigger picture, and then from that we can then determine if and how we can help them. Obviously, initially, through what we do in terms of the software, but we also work with a number of consultants up and down the UK who are sort of process improvement consultants. They're trained in Lean or Six Sigma. So if there is some process improvement work that needs to be done first, then obviously we send one of those consultants in to do that piece of work first, because it's all about making sure that the core processes have been optimized before you put the software in.
Right. So it's a much better partnership and a much better understanding, rather than here's a large price tag for a technical solution. You run with it yourselves, and we'll walk out the door, sort of thing. There's much more hand holding. I mean, you spoke of challenges and achievements. Would you break down sort of one or two of those, of what's a challenge or achievement that you've worked through with this?
Yeah, so we have companies. So about 90% of the manufacturing companies that we work with, as I said, earlier, have, are still managing their business with, disparate sort of spreadsheets and manual whiteboards. About sort of 10% maybe have either built some legacy software themselves or have dipped their toes in with another piece of software that's very much on-prem. So I guess what we look at is talking to companies, and we've had an example recently with a small furniture manufacturer who'd looked at some other software, looked at our platform, MRP Easy, was just looking very basically in terms of her sort of short-term requirements, hadn't really considered sort of CRM, hadn't really considered sort of e-commerce. But when we started having that wider dialogue, the end of that half an hour, sometimes doesn't take that long, a half an hour conversation, her response back to me was, that's great. You've asked me some very constructive but challenging questions. I've now had to think about where I want to take my business. And now I realize that very short-term approach I had and what I was originally looking to achieve, actually there's a bigger picture here, and I could have made the mistake by just focusing on very much on that short term, and then obviously I wouldn't have had a platform that would have enabled me to grow and move forward. So that's just that's an example recently.
And so are these approaches sort of in a sense of sort of custom best practice that you can work through with them, or is it with the goal of being an ISO standard compliance, or working with them through Six Sigma or something like you were saying before, or is it's more just custom, and if they have those programs also, it can also fit into that, rather than it's a sort of prescriptive way?
Yes, I mean, it's always very much a sort of a consultative approach that we take. We're sort of trying to tease out the right information for us to know which route to go down. Sometimes it is straightforward, that they have got the process of the line. Maybe they didn't understand there was technology out there that was available. We've gone through our qualification, and it is a relatively straightforward exercise of us starting a discovery and scoping process onto the implementation. Other times, very, very clearly, there's some basic work that needs to be done. So I can think of a cable harnessing manufacturing company who already had another software platform. So they were part of that sort of 10% market that I talked about earlier. But then when they wanted to move forward and do much more in the way of automated scheduling, which their current software package didn't allow them to do, or not without quite an expensive upgrade. But then when we looked at the way that they had structured their work centres or their equipment in the factory, it was never going to be in the right state for them to be able to benefit the software, whether they bought our software or anybody's software. So again, that was a bespoke piece of work that needed to be done first. Touching upon what you just mentioned about the ISO side, the two businesses, as I said earlier, do feed off one another. And it's quite interesting. Sometimes when we go to a manufacturing company, we're asking them, about how they manage sort of scrap in terms of non-conformances, quality management. And then, sometimes that they feed back to us and say, oh, gosh, yes, ISO 9001, it's been something that's been on our agenda for some time. Gosh, that's something we've got to look at. And obviously then the benefit is this is an area we can also help them with. So, yeah, one business does, feed quite neatly into the other, and we can help them. Sometimes the initial, focus will be, let's get the ERP software in and then look at the ISO 9001 project as a secondary, or vice versa. So yes, we can help them with that side as well, and with the wider sort of compliance management with some other software that we have.
I mean, I guess it starts going together when you think that rolling in this type of software is either you've realised you are missing scale because you can't get faster, you can't follow stuff, or you're missing stuff, you're missing out on stuff, or you want to scale and this is going to help you go there. And some of these things like ISO, different ISO standards, ISO 9001, and the more specific ones are requirements to certain contracts when working with other companies, working with aviation, working with medical and stuff. You're going to need to have passed these basic ones, and some of these sort of tools help you go a long way there of getting that as a process that you can manage and work with.
No, absolutely. So we on the ISO side, we see sort of two, let's call it categories of companies that sort of approach us. So there are those, as you said, who suddenly, want to work, with in the government sector, or they want to suddenly work with Rolls-Royce, or close to home where I am with the Hinkley C development, they want to work with a tier 1 and tier 2 provider. And basically they suddenly realise, gosh, they tick all the other boxes, but they don't have 9001. So I would describe that as a little bit of sometimes it can be a bit of a grudge purchase. And, they're just looking at putting 9001 in because they've been told they have to award that contract, versus the sort of other category of companies that we see who very much, see particularly ISO 9001 as it should be seen as a method, in terms of driving continuous improvement through the business. So they want to put, that whole cultural change program, because it is a cultural change program, in place, to really drive efficiency. So quite a mixture of companies in terms of how they approach things. But I guess that ties the two businesses together. What we're all about is helping primarily SMEs improve the way they run their business, drive that improvement through the entire business.
Yeah, I mean, they're system improvements, but at the end of the day, they're people processes. Whichever you're doing, you're helping people work together or reduce friction or be able to add more or do more. And they are something you have to roll out as a people program, not just a press button, switch over, not here's a new machine, go. Everyone's got to be on board and everyone's got to work through, whether that's Agile, Lean, Six Sigma, ISO, that they're about relationships between people at the end of the day, aren't they?
No, absolutely. And unless you get those people bought in at the outset, then, there's going to be a reluctance to use that technology, and you're never going to be able to maximize that sort of return on investment. So when we start, any project, whether in fact that's on the ISO side or it's on the manufacturing with the ERP software, we always make sure that we've, got the input from all of the stakeholders, and they understand why that company is embarking on that project, what that software or what that standard is going to do in terms of making their life easier on a day-to-day basis, but also what it will contribute to the success of the company that they're part of. But yes, the collaboration and bringing people together and getting that people aspect I really can't stress enough is absolutely key. I mean, we've seen projects where, technology was, implemented by an external contractor. He or she has put their arms around it, perhaps canvassed a very small amount of input with minimal training to the users. The system goes live to a certain fashion. That contractor's services are dispensed with, and then nobody has got the end-to-end holistic view of how that system, should operate, and they've missed a trick. Equally, we've seen other manufacturing companies where they've just bought a piece of software. It was probably never properly scoped for their business, never properly implemented. They've struggled to get the right support from the supplier. And in the end, as one MD said to me, I can only wait so many months. I've tried in vain to make this piece of software work for the business. And ultimately, I've just had to reluctantly accept that I've invested £10,000 or more in a piece of software, and I have to let that go and abandon that investment. And for me, I find that just doesn't sit comfortably with me at all. Whatever investment that you make, you want to ensure that return. So I think for us, it's very important for those companies not to rush ahead, to do that sufficient planning, understand what they want, the value they want to get short term, mid term, long term from that software investment. Make sure they get everybody on board and take them on that journey and deliver against some key sort of KPIs that you set at the outset.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's great to hear the passion and the experience coming through from you and out through the team of what you've been able to do here. I mean, as we come to sort of more towards the end of the interview and stuff, have you got any sort of little points or recommendations where people might sort of reflect on their business at the moment and see, it would be a good opportunity, or there's a good sign that says this is where I should go forward and come and talk to someone like you, because one of these systems could do something for them, could free them up?
Yes, I think we've seen, I suppose, COVID has for our business been quite a catalyst, particularly on the manufacturing software, because I think cloud-based software, the ability to be able to support people remotely, whereas prior to COVID, there was, concerns about, where's my data going to be held, how secure it is. I like having my data on my site, in that server that's got the green ticking box and all that sort of stuff. I think some businesses have obviously not had the cloud-based software. I've seen other businesses who've been more, able to effectively support their workforce. So we've seen a lot of companies sort of come to us and say, look, you don't even need to sell us on the benefits of cloud-based software. We get it. We want to move forward. We've realized that now is the time, forget thriving. It's all about, unless we look at changing the way that we do business, driving improved sort of efficiency through the business, getting better collaboration to bring our teams together, we're not going to survive. So we know we've got to do something different. We're not necessarily sure what we've got, and we need people who can roll up their sleeves, give us sort of cost-effective, practical advice and work with us to, help us on that journey, because, we're of a certain age that we don't necessarily understand, what technology can actually do for us. We don't want people who can just spill out all of the jargon about Industry 4.0 and automation and Internet of Things. We want people who, can de-jargonize that, look at our business, work with us, understand our challenges, and, help us actually put technology in that's going to deliver value, to the business. And that's where we focus. It's again on that alignment of the people, the process, and the technology. There's lots of technologies out there. There's lots of different schemes around in terms of funding. I spend a lot of time looking at funding schemes. There's some great work that's been done in the Northwest with the Made Smarter initiative. There's a lot of talk about that initiative being widened, across the UK. So there's a lot of technology. There's a lot of knowledge. It's about bringing that together, making it meaningful for the individual business, and that's what we pride ourselves on.
can make sense that previously maybe the only remote people or often remote people from the business were sales representatives or people going out to do demos or do maintenance or something. When almost the whole entire organisation is then forced to work at least partly remotely or change shift patterns a lot, being able to be continually connected and kept up to date and something be more cloud based and not just rely on it being physical presence, then see the benefits there. I mean, where do you see that going in the next sort of 2 or 3 years? Do you think that's just going to continue to grow, or that there are opportunities here for some people, even though there's sort of a strange time at the moment for working situations?
No, I think there's a lot of opportunity. As I said, there's a lot of talk about new digital technologies. So, manufacturers are hearing lots about it. So there's a great awareness. I think a lot still need that help, but a lot of them have started, opening their eyes and ears to what else is out and available. And we know we've got to change. We know we've got to do things differently. Grandfather started this business, and we've been largely carrying on in the same vein. The times are changing. We need to do something different. So there's a real willingness to look at what's out there and to look at working with people like ourselves that can share best practice, share experience, and, as I said, roll up our sleeves and work with them to move forward. I think SMEs have that ability, unlike corporates, that they can almost spin on a sixpence. They are a lot more agile, a lot more flexible. There's less bureaucracy. And a lot of them that we've certainly met with, have a specialism and are very good at what they do in terms of manufacturing that specific precision engineering tool. As an example, what they need is, people and experts in different areas from the outside world that can inject that experience and that expertise and help them, move to the next level and basically being able to, compete against a corporate. And there's no reason why they shouldn't with that injection of external expertise.
So, I mean, the changing times, both in sort of political and sort of reshoring and pandemics and also all these new technologies and this sort of innovation coming in of offering a more automated or a different style of future, more data, more information, more processes. Do you think you're enjoying where you have a part in helping shape this future, talking to people, working with people?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm fortunate that with my background, having sort of been involved with technology and cloud-based software for many years, I get it. I've got an experience in that side, and I can see how it's benefited larger organizations. And as I say, with new technologies, and whether it's ERP software or it's CRM, there's a lot of software now that's been specifically designed and developed for the SME market. So in terms of user functionality, as well as the sort of price points, is now within the SME's reach. So that brings those technologies that has normally been the remit of corporates to the SME world. It's all about how you harness that technology and make sure that it really is delivering, value for your organization. And bringing those, functions of your organization together, but also automating, some labor-intensive, perhaps sort of boring and monotonous work, so that your employees get, available to do more, exciting roles. I mean, there's been a lot of talk about new technologies, automation, robots. Is that just going to eliminate, so many people and, make job losses? And perhaps it's just going to change the profile of what people will be doing. So I think as long as SMEs are open to, looking at these new technologies and allowing perhaps some of their younger generation people that are moving into the organisation, again, to bring those sort of technical skills that they've grown up with into the organisation, I think that's key going forward as well. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, there's still the pushes, and obviously it does take time of bringing more apprentices in, more people in, and they often have a different outlook. I mean, younger people today, especially the ones coming out of sort of school and college now, have grown up with the technology all around them, and they're much more comfortable with it, and they relate in a different way to it. So in some ways, they're going to bring other sort of skills and advice with them too, or needs, and working with the way that things work. So, I mean, just to have our last sort of fun question as to, I hope you brought your superhero costume. Some people decide to put it on themselves. Sometimes they would like to put it on one of their clients. If you're being boxed into the corner and you need to come out fighting, what would be a couple of things that you'd reach for to help people come out on top in this sector?
I would seek external advice and experience, share learning with other manufacturers, and even if it's a manufacturer in a very different sector, somebody that's got some experience in an area that you can gain. Mentoring also has been frequently sort of brought up in a number of recent manufacturing events that I've been to, and I think that certainly it could be sort of further expanded. So those would be some of the things that I would focus on.
Definitely, people need to be able to bridge that gap of okay, I'm thinking of retiring, I'm thinking of going to a more senior position. How can I bring my experience to the younger generations? They're going to have to come through and help you succeed in the future, sort of thing. So nothing ever quite stays the same, does it? It's always improving and refining and.
But I think that's what makes life interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that things don't stand still. We're always sort of moving forward, but everybody, can learn. So some of the older generation can learn from the younger generation, but equally that younger generation can learn from some of those manufacturing directors that have been in their business 25, 30 years. So, the learning can be, from top down and, mm-hmm. From all approaches, 360-degree learning, I think we used to call it in the corporate world.
So that's great. Well, thanks for being able to join us today and having a great, lively conversation here. Was there anything else you'd like to share or tell the audience about and how they could get in contact with you?
Yeah, so you can contact me via either of our websites, so smartquality.co.uk or smartmanufacture.co.uk, and there is a link between the two sites. You can call me on my mobile, which is 07514 701 994. Also, we'll be promoting, we are just starting on a series of webinars with our ERP platform, MRP Easy, and that will be to raise awareness of the benefits of cloud-based ERP software in terms of the specific benefits it offers to manufacturing SMEs. So that will be launching very soon, and I'll be probably promoting that via LinkedIn. Watch that space.
Watch that space and look forward to joining along. ERPs are systems that I've used, but I could do with learning more about them and enjoying working with companies like yourself that are good at implementing them and working with businesses. So thanks again.
You're very welcome. Thank you very much, Tristan. Pleasure talking to you.
Thanks for joining us today again, myself and my guest. If you'd like to get in contact with us, and we'll put the details in the show notes on cliffnotespodcast.com, or contact us on LinkedIn or Twitter at cliffnotespod. And we always like to hear some good feedback, good reviews, or recommend your own colleagues or boss that they'd like to come on the show and share their wisdom and keep this community growing and talking. Thank you again, and see you next time.